Can you please start just by introducing yourself to everybody watching?
Sure. Kia ora, Will. Thanks for having us along today to share our stories. So, ko Joe Hikaka toko ingoa, he uri aho no ngā ruahine. I'm Joe Hikaka and I whakapapatu ngā ruahine in South Taranaki. I grew up in Hamilton, but have lived in Tamaki Makaurau for the last 20 years. And I am a researcher and a pharmacist by background. And I live at home with my husband and my two children, Huia and Pete, who at the moment are 11 and 9. So
beautiful.
Yeah.
Just for a bit of context, what does it mean for your family that you're a researcher?
I don't know if they know a lot about it. So I'm not, university isn't sort of something that's featured largely in our whānau upbringing. I'm sure it's it's baffling as to what researchers do, and it might sound a bit sort of, removed from everyday life. But I think the research I like to do, I only really like to do it if I can see that there'll be a real world impact. So I think, so when I try and explain maybe on a day-to-day what I do, it might be sort of outside what is normal for them, but when they see, what the impact of that research is, I think that's more meaningful for them.
I guess there's a few ways we could kind of talk about your story today, and I'd like to talk about your story, but also how it combines to why we're here today. Mm-hmm. Can you just quickly give us a quick update as to how you got into this field and what your pathway is, just if people are looking for breadcrumbs for their own story?
Yeah, sure thing. So I guess we're here today talking about that research space. And for me, research was not something I hadn't ever really thought about. And it seems a real shame because I love research. I love understanding more about what's going on and sort of being able to, dig into things in more detail. But I got into research really through my role as a pharmacist. I was brought into research projects to deliver a pharmacist-based service that other people were evaluating and looking at the impact of that. And I started to sort of be more then involved in actually what was going on behind the scenes in those research processes. And I really enjoy it. I love the developing things with people developing services and, with people that are most impacted by that, both negatively and positively. So trying to create positive change in the research I do is, really important.
And you kind of alluded to it earlier, but sometimes I think for people who aren't in academia, it's quite tricky to see how this all fits in.
Yeah.
And if we talk about research, what's it there to do? Kind of help us understand bigger ideas?
Yeah, and I think understand maybe why things happen in a certain way or how we can improve things. I think another reason that I was drawn to research is that working as a pharmacist and working with people, there were all these ideas of how things could be improved, and we might trial them, but then we didn't have good information as to whether that was useful or beneficial. And if you don't have good information, then no one wants to put the money behind it to back it. There's no sort of sustainable, ongoing service provided. And a big thing for me that I hoped when I went into more formal research and going through that formal pathway of doing a PhD was that I'd get more skills in how we do that in a really develop services in a good way, so that people, not just the people that the service is there to serve, but that those that will back it financially and in terms of resourcing see value into. Mm-hmm. And I think that's, for me, has been really important for research.
And just before we kind of, get a bit more specific about today where we are in Pukekohe, can you talk a little bit about the importance of, research and community being in harmony?
Yeah, sure thing. I think, the first thing, if we're just doing research and not involving community, then we don't see the impact. We don't understand the impact. We don't get it right. I think for me, it's so much easier to do things when you're doing things in harmony and community with others. You understand more about what the issues are, and how to address those issues, what the solutions are. So, a lot of the time I see that people have their own solutions. It's just they don't have the power. They've not been given power or privilege to explore those solutions, to deliver those solutions, to act on those solutions that are already well known in community. And so I think that's a really important role that researchers have, because even in Aotearoa, which is quite a small community compared to the global scene, there is sort of power put behind people that come from that academic space. And in all honesty, it's been hard for me reconciling being in that academic space, because it was sort of a world that I never knew existed. I knew there was universities. I'd been to university to become a pharmacist, but that was very much, I was going to university to get a job as a pharmacist. I didn't really understand the extent of what research could look like in that space, or the power dynamics that go on and all that kind of thing. And so it's been really eye-opening for me seeing that. And so I'm trying to, both inside and outside that space, sort of advocate for community's voice in everything that we do.
It sounds like it's a voyage, like every other journey in life.
Absolutely. And it's a classic situation. I thought I was going to do my PhD, and I thought that was the highest level of research, and then you realize, that's just such a small, and that formal pathway, it's a small stepping stone on the thing, on the journey. And then you also see people that are working in those community spaces that are doing research, but outside of what academia see as research, that are so experienced and have so much knowledge. And there's people that have so much to give and that I can learn from.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So we're here today in the community, which is kind of beautiful. We're at the Pacifica Digital Knowledge Bank here in Pukekohe, and I wondered if you could just, in your own words, talk about today. What is it? What's the significance? And to, I guess, talk a little bit about the hope.
Yeah, sure. So I guess I'm here representing the Centre for Co-Created Ageing Research from Waipapa Taumatarau, Auckland University. And we're here today. I see my role as really just to be a seen face, so people can see a face behind this centre, but and just to be here and listen. So explain what the potential of the centre is as we see it, but then what that potential looks like for community, and recognising that there are many different communities this centre could touch. And so this is, a really important step in that, being in the community, understanding aspirations community have for a centre like Create Age. And so that's really important for me today, is just to be here and listen, but also be able to, I guess, back up why I think the centre is important, because, we don't want people having to invest their time and their thought, their whakaaro into things that go nowhere. We see that enough, and I don't, want to be that. So sort of being here, reassuring people that we are here to try and meet others' aspirations as well within the centre.
Beautiful. What would be some, I guess, hopeful outcomes of, closer relationships between seniors and researchers, and I guess the interweaving worlds that we're witnessing today, even in the room next door, where there's a mixture of age, ethnicity, gender, and I guess what potential that has for some of the research coming up.
Yeah, well, it's just, I think, opening that space and opening those connections, a space to make connections, so you're building that trust. I think, that's really, I think, the main thing today, being a seen face, and, but is the first stage of building a trusting relationship, so that meaningful research can take place, and, researching topics, ideas, solutions that are of value to the community.
Joe, something that maybe has been on my mind is the impression of maybe academia is it's quite in your brain, on paper, in an office. Today, it feels like research is out in the community. Is there something to that, something powerful, something connecting there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's where research needs to be. I think, we need to, break down the walls around what research could and can be. So there's definitely formal pathways, and I've found that those formal pathways within, the university system have helped me in the way I approach things. But there's so many different ways to doing research, and that's what the centre's about as well, is trying to engage with those different ways of creating knowledge, creating solutions. So it's not all about, the whole written word and all this kind of thing, but it's being in these spaces where creativity can help us develop solutions too.
Beautiful. And just finally, if someone's watching this back in 10, 20, 30, 40, even 100 years, what do you hope might be an outcome? And I don't wish to push a researcher into, crystal balling, but at some point we're all thinking about life. What do you hope a positive impact will be from the centre?
I guess, for me it would be that the centre's known because it's seen in the communities, and so various different communities see that centre as a positive thing that has shaped, it. And if they reflect, if it's 100 years from now and they think, oh wow, that's where things started from this person, like this group of people, and meeting with communities, and so I guess that for me it would be that the centre's known because of the positive outcomes that are seen in the real world.
Awesome. And just if anyone's interested to follow more of your journey or the centre's journey, what's the best process there? Yeah,
sure. So we've got a website, and we can put a QR code or a link to that in the bottom of the screen. Is that how they do it on YouTube?
You're a YouTuber now.
Yeah, I know. Click below to subscribe.
That's right.
Yeah, that's us.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing time and space and ideas, and it was fun chatting.
Thanks so much, Will.